All right, I got the majority of it stacked on the front of the forks here. All right, what we're looking at here is a pine tree that went down during a storm we had this summer. Basically this video, I'm gonna limb her up, drag her to a little clearer of a spot to work on it, and then I'm gonna use the chainsaw mill and chop her into a couple boards. We probably had a little over a half dozen trees go down this summer during that. We had one big storm. So although that sucks when you lose trees, every year I like to chop a couple up for winter projects and stuff like that. But it's like a year delay. Like this one I chop up, or the other ones when I chop them up with the mill, then I'll set them aside, and I'll end up for my winter projects this year use the trees I cut last year. I usually let them dry for 1 year, and usually where I leave them sit, you know, the moisture content is low enough I don't get hardly any more movement or cracking after I let them dry for that 1 year. So enough talking, time to get started. All right, I have the guide installed for the first cut on the log here. You can get pretty scientific with it if you want to maximize how much wood you get out of the log. But I just looked at the radar and though it's sunny right now, there is one heck of a storm moving in. So I might get my protective layer of dirt washed off of me later. But the saw I'm going to be using is steel. It's a MS661C. It's one of the saws I own. Right now I got a 36-inch bar on it with an Oregon ripping chain. And this saw is, the steel makes more powerful ones, but this is a good balance for weight and power that I kind of like. Because I can use, you know, you put on like a 20-inch bar or 18-inch bar, and this thing is a machine cutting down trees. But this is what I'll be using for cutting this log up. Things you want to watch for on this mill. On the first cut, you want to make sure you have it set deep enough so you don't hit the, what would you call them, the tongs type things that you beat into the log to hold the rail on to make the first cut good. You want to go through and you want to double check your bolts after every couple cuts because they will loosen up on you. And you want to make sure there's no bow in your bar here, because sometimes if these move or you adjust them down, sometimes it'll put like a bow, and that really screws your wood up. And you got to watch, because I've had these loosen up, move down, and then you know, say you're cutting a 1/4 inch and your boards are off by a 1/4 inch from side to side, and when you're cutting a slab, that kind of sucks. You know, you get it out, then you got to spend all that work at home with the router trying to straighten it off or run it through the mill again. But then let's see, what else can I say about it. The thing is a gas eating machine, so you're gonna want to, you know, after every like 2 or 3 cuts, you definitely want to check the fuel and make sure you got oil in there. I adjust the oil on the bottom so it's running out, coming out full speed. And then when you're done making your cuts, you definitely want to let the saw idle for a while, kind of cool itself down before you shut it off. You don't want to go plowing through making a couple cuts with the chainsaw and then just shut her down, because that's definitely not good for it. Other things, when you're done, you want to loosen up the chain, because as it cools, the chain could tighten and it could screw up the saw head, the power head. So when you're done cutting, if you get it real hot, you want to make sure you loosen up the chain. I'm sure there's more, but I got to get cutting, so we'll get cutting, and if I think anything, I'll mention it. All right, that first cut went a little rougher than planned. I had to stop the adjusting screws I had above the rail because I just slapped this thing on in a hurry, and it would catch on the guide on the saw. So, but no harm, no foul. The first cut is done. So these slabs, I know a lot of people look at them as junk, but I make some cool stuff out of these things. At least I consider it cool. You can make bird houses that, you know, if you leave the bark on, or you take the bark off and finish them, they look pretty. And then, like, I slice chunks off, use them for stands on little crafts I make. Yeah, definitely, I save these. And if you get a big enough one, you can make nice little benches out of them too. Not that any of that stuff is going to change the world or make you rich, but anywhere a guy can make a few bucks, a guy's obligated to make a few bucks, isn't he? But kind of a nice pretty wood, got a little blue stain to it. I think that's gonna make a few nice boards. Now I will adjust my saw. I'm thinking probably 1-inch boards. Maybe I'll cut one in real time. I did time warp on that first one, but after I adjust this, maybe I'll cut one in real time. All right, I changed my mind on the 1-inch. I decided to go 1.5 inches, just so after I plane them I can get a nice board out of it. If you notice, I got it setting on this little junk piece of log. This was actually the bottom of this tree, but it was broken half where it come off the main part of the tree, because this was actually just one branch, kind of a big branch off the tree. But yeah, I'm gonna cut this to 1.5 inches. That way I can plane it down for making some projects. small log, you're definitely going to want to keep wedges so you can jam wedges in behind as you cut, so the weight of the log doesn't come down, or the board doesn't come down and pinch your blade, and that creates a real rough cut. So I have wedges on the bigger ones, but this one's so small it doesn't make much of a difference. I don't think I talked about how you adjust this thing. It's pretty simple to do. There's U-bolts that clamp onto these square pipes. You loosen them up. And you move it down, and on this bar and on this bar there's an inch ruler on here. You know, it goes up by 1/8 of an inch. So you just set it where you want it, and that's how deep your cut is. Again, what you want to make sure once you set it that it doesn't move, and then you want to take a good look at your bar to make sure your bar isn't bowed, because sometimes if this clamp that's clamped onto the bar of your chainsaw that's attached to this bar, if that moves in or out, and then you slide on this rail that rides on the flat part of the log, it can bow your bar, and that gives you horrible lumber, you know, and what's the point of doing it if you're going to get crap lumber? But super simple system to use. Like I said, I'm going to line this up to 1.5 inches like I did with the last one. Now these got a torque spec on them. It says 10 to 12 foot-pounds. So click, 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 click. There, it's torqued to 10 to 12 foot-pounds. But what I did, they actually sell a parts kit for this thing that includes pretty much all the nuts and bolts. I have it back there. I suppose I could throw it in the video, but there ain't really much to see. It includes these U-bolts that clamp onto here, and then it includes all the nuts and bolts. So I bought that because it was fairly cheap, and being up here, nothing's worse than you know, some little 5-cent bolt breaks, or you drop it and lose it, and then you're out of luck. You know, you're out of luck. So I bought the little parts kit just so that don't happen. Click, 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 click. There, that's torqued to 10 to 12 foot-pounds too. So both of them are at 1.5 inches. Yep, we're good to go. And again, between different cuts, you definitely want to make sure the bolts right here and back here that are clamping these onto your bar are not loosening up. I always take a wrench and check them, and you want to check that your bar isn't bowing up. All right, I'll get back to cutting. All right, here we are. This is the fruits of about an hour's worth of work. Half a tank of gas in the chainsaw mill, and about half a tank of gas in the little chainsaw. And that hour's worth of work included me limbing it and dragging the 2 logs out and setting the chainsaw mill and hauling that up here. So I don't think that's too bad. I mean, if a guy was more organized than me, he could probably get it done a lot quicker, but I got to work with what I got to work with, I guess. Basically now that these are cut, I got what, five decent boards, and then 4 of the rounds. And like I said, I use these for different projects too. But I think they turned out pretty darn good. You can see the finish on these. It's fairly smooth. I mean, it's a nice sharp chainsaw blade, so that's a pretty decent finish. I will still, after they're dry, run it through the planer, plane it down. That's why I cut them to 1.5 inches. But I'll plane it down. You don't want to try and plane them when they're wet, because if you try planing them when they're wet, it chunks out. If this was any other wood other than pine, and I know a lot of people still do, but I've had fantastic luck with not anchor sealing the ends. I don't think anchor sealing them would hurt. It definitely probably wouldn't hurt, but I usually only anchor seal the ends on like oaks, maples, aspen, you know, stuff like that I cut. This white pine and red pine, I've had fantastic luck. All I do is I take it and I stack it up in the building I got down there, and I just let it air dry for a year. And, well, let me correct that. I don't stack it. I lean it against the wall. I don't really cut enough to sticker and make a pile outside. So basically, I just lean these up in the corner. I leave them for a year, and next year, when I'm cutting whatever fell down next year, I will grab these and haul these home. And then I will use these next year for whatever projects I'm making. Like when I go home today, I'm going to take home a bunch of wood that I cut last year, because it'll be all dried. And like I said, just letting these air dry, and even without anchor sealing the ends, just lean them against the wall, most of my boards are still nice and straight, and I get very little cracking. Is there anything else I can say about these boards? They got a little blue stain on them, which I don't mind. I think that I don't mind the look of that. I think that looks okay. We always try and get the trees the first year after they go down, just because there's some kind of bug, and I don't know what the name of it is, but it eats holes in the trees after they're dead. And literally, I mean, they can go in, and I mean, you leave a log sit for 2 years, and sometimes it's kind of unusable for what I like to use. I know some people like that kind of character in their projects, and you could fill the holes with epoxy, or I know there's a lot of projects like that, and I've yet to dabble my foot into that world of using the epoxy, and maybe this winter I'll try something like that. But anyhow, I prefer without the bug holes. So we try and get them the first year, and that seems to be working for us. All right, I guess that's enough rambling on. I just wanted to show you basically with a chainsaw mill what you can get done in about an hour. You know, and that's, you know, with dragging the log and stuff, I went over that. If you just had logs lined up one by one, and you were a little younger than me and a little more energetic, you could probably cut 4 times this. But this is what I get done in an hour. All right, and the good news is the storm looks like it is going to miss us. So I got another tree I'm going to go try and wrestle out, and I'll get chopping on that thing. Well, this is the next target. This one looks like it'll be a little more dangerous, but I'll take her slow and get a nice little area to try and drop this thing. It looks like I'm going to have to cut this right here, because if you look around, it'd be kind of hard to worm it out. And that's out there, that's the road, the main road. So I can't be dragging it out onto that. But basically, I'll get clearing away on this thing. All right, I got the majority of it stacked on the front of the forks here. This would be the red pine one. This is a piece of the red pine. The base ended up being a little rotten, so got some more color to it and some character. Again, this is the white pine. I'll show you. Whew, windy. Storm is moving in after all, so I think I really do have to wrap this up. I pretty much got it cleared out of here. I got to drag some more boards out. Again, the base ended up having some rotten spots, but I think I can save some of that. But I kind of got a threefer out of this deal. I got the majority of the log cleaned up. I got a little extra piece. I'm going to be building a log cabin deer stand out of littler pine logs because I have a surplus of those. And then for the third bonus, besides the cleanup and the boards, if you look over here, I got me a little deer blind. So I can just carry a bucket in here, plop down if I feel so inclined, and this is actually a pretty good spot for hunting. My driveway is right there, and I got cameras going up and down my driveway, so I can monitor who's coming and going. Because some people, you talk to them and they seem nice, and then you get like multiple pictures as I'm going down your driveway and then they deny ever going down, but whatever. But anyhow, I got game cameras set up on the driveway, and the deer, this is like a regular runway. If you go through here, on that side there's a cow pasture, and at night sometimes there'll be 20 deer standing out in that field, and I would say 90% of them come through this little woods here, or jungle, probably 15 yards in front of where I'm standing, which will be maybe 20 yards from where I'd be sitting on a bucket if I felt so inclined to sit back here. So kind of got a threefer out of this one. Again, the red pine logs, or the boards I should say, I'm pretty happy with them. I mean, just for an example on the width, that's the width, nothing huge. Again, the higher sections of this log where I cut, they came out more of a pure white. The slower section where the log was kind of rotten, if you can see it, this is the very end I cut off, and this is the stump it come off of. So the lower sections got a little more color because they had a little rot starting to bleed up into them. But I chopped them into boards, and I'll cut off what I can use after it dries out, and we'll go from there. Now I got to get this stuff wrapped up. Sky's looking kind of getting darker. I know there's some big colored blobs headed this way on the radar, but there's big colored blobs heading this way this morning too, and nothing happened. So I don't know if this will blow over too, but yeah, that's today's haul. Again, this is red pine. The ones with the more blue stain are the white pine, and it's all blow down wood that would otherwise just laid there and rotted. And again, I'm using a little steel 661. If guy was gonna just 100% chainsaw mill all the time, I would go with their bigger one. They have, I think, one more bigger than this, but I'm hoping to get a bandsaw mill eventually, because you can cut a lot of good boards like this, but I don't know that you could efficiently cut enough boards to make a house. But yeah, I guess that is what it is. I'll quit jabbering on. I got to get this project wrapped up here so I can get back before the rain starts dropping on my head. Thanks for watching.